You're sitting at your desk, right? Maybe it's 9 p.m. on a Tuesday, and you're scrolling through your investment app for the third time today. You're not even checking on anything new. You're just checking because there's this nagging feeling in the back of your mind that you haven't done enough, that maybe you're behind, that someday, and you don't even know exactly when, you'll need to have amassed some magical number of dollars. And then, maybe, you can finally relax. But here's the thing. Nobody ever actually tells you when that moment is. They throw around numbers like $1 million or 25 times your expenses. But those feel abstract, right? Like someone telling you to live your best life. Technically helpful, but also not really. My name's Macro, and I spend way too much time thinking about money. Not in a neurotic, check your app at 11 p.m. kind of way, though I understand that impulse, but more in a genuinely curious way. I'm fascinated by the mathematical turning points in finance, the moments where the stress should flip a switch in your brain, where the anxiety isn't solved by doing more, but by finally understanding when enough is actually enough. Because here's what I've discovered. There is an exact age, not approximate, not somewhere in your 50s or 60s. There's an actual mathematical inflection point where retirement stops being this vague, terrifying goal and starts being an inevitable mathematical reality. And the moment you understand that age, the moment you really get it, everything shifts. The stress doesn't vanish overnight, but it transforms. It stops being, am I doing enough? And starts being, how do I spend this wisely? So that's what we're doing today. We're finding your number, the exact age where the math takes over, where your investments work so hard that you genuinely don't have to anymore. And here's the weird part. It might be sooner than you think, but you have to understand why it works that way first. Okay, so let's start with something foundational. And I promise I'm not going to bore you with 10th grade algebra. But there's this concept in finance called compound growth, and it is, hands down, the most important thing that separates people who build wealth from people who stay stressed about money forever. Here's the simplest way to think about it. If you invest $1 today, and it grows by 7% a year, which is roughly the historical average for the stock market, that dollar doesn't just grow by 7% once. It grows by 7% every single year. And then the growth grows. Your earnings start earning their own earnings. It's like making money on your money's behalf, which sounds like cheating, but it's not. It's math. Let me give you a concrete example. Say you invest $10,000 at age 25. You do absolutely nothing else. Just let it sit. By the time you're 35, with 7% annual growth, that $10,000 becomes about $19,700. Cool, right? It nearly doubled in a decade. But here's where it gets wild. By age 45, it's $38,600. By age 55, it's $76,000. By age 65, you're looking at $150,000 from that single $10,000 investment. Now, imagine you're not just doing it once. Imagine every single month, and this is important, every month you're adding a little bit more. Not a fortune, maybe $500 a month, or even $200. The math doesn't care about the exact number as much as it cares about consistency and time. That's the thing. Time is doing like 80% of the work. Your contributions are important, sure, but they're almost secondary to just staying in the game. This is why people who start investing at 25 become wealthy almost by accident. Not because they're geniuses, not because they got lucky, just because they gave the math time to work. And this principle, this exact principle, is what determines that exact age we're looking for today.
All right. So there's this concept that financial planners have been quietly using for decades, and it's called the 4% rule. And honestly, when you understand this rule, the whole retirement conversation becomes clear. Like, not just helpful, clarifying. Here's how it works. If you have a pot of money, you can safely withdraw 4% of it every single year, adjusted for inflation, and that money will theoretically last you for 30 years or more without running out. It's based on historical data, decades of analysis, and is basically the consensus among financial experts. So let's do the math in reverse. If you need $40,000 a year to live on, and you can only safely withdraw 4% of your portfolio, then you need $1 million, because 4% of a million is 40,000. If you need $50,000 a year, you need 1.25 million. If you need 30,000, you need 750,000. Now, here's where this gets personal. What do you actually need to live on? And I don't mean like, what do you spend now? I mean, what will you actually need when you're retired? Because here's the secret that nobody talks about. Most people actually need less money in retirement than they think they do. Think about it. If you're working a traditional job, you're spending money on commuting, work clothes, lunch out, little stress purchases. You're financing a lifestyle around being productive in a workplace. But if you're retired, those costs vanish suddenly. So a lot of people who spend $80,000 a year while working can actually live comfortably on $55,000 or $60,000 a year in retirement. So let me ask you, what's your actual number? Not your fear number, your actual, realistic, I could be genuinely happy with this number. Write it down, honestly, because we're about to use it to find that magical age. Okay, so this is where it gets interesting. This is where the anxiety turns into clarity. There's this thing that happens, and it's not mystical, it's totally mathematical, where the amount of money your investments make in a year suddenly exceeds the amount of money you're adding to them. Let me explain what I mean. In your 20s and 30s, you're probably saving maybe $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a year. Your investments might be making 5, 6, 7%. So your investment gains are maybe $3,000 or $4,000 a year if your portfolio is still relatively small. In that phase, you are doing the heavy lifting. Your contributions matter more than your returns. But then something shifts. Let's say you're disciplined. You've been investing for 15 years. You've got $300,000 saved up. Now 7% of that is $21,000 a year. That's more than your annual contributions. So your portfolio is literally making more money than you are by working and saving. Your portfolio is becoming your income source. And then, and this is the moment I'm talking about, your portfolio keeps growing. Your 7% gains are now on a larger number. Maybe you're at $600,000. 7% of that is $42,000. That's full-time job money that your portfolio is making while you sleep, while you're on vacation, while you're literally doing anything else. This is the inflection point. This is the exact age where the anxiety should start to shift, because at this moment, mathematically speaking, you've already won. Your investments have hit critical mass. The compounding is now so strong that it's pulling you forward on its own. Most people, if they've been disciplined, hit this point somewhere in their late 40s or early 50s. But here's the thing, a lot of them don't realize it. They keep grinding, they keep worrying, they keep adding money to a portfolio that doesn't actually need their money anymore.
So let's actually do this. Let's find your number, your exact age, and I'm going to walk you through the logic. First, decide your annual retirement need. Let's say it's $50,000 a year. Using the 4% rule, you need $1.25 million to be able to safely retire. Second, figure out where you are now. How much do you have saved? Let's say you're 35 and you've got $200,000. And let's say you're going to contribute $15,000 a year from here on out. Let's assume 7% annual returns. Now, the math, your $200,000 grows at 7%. Your contributions grow at 7%. You're adding $15,000 every single year. How long until you hit $1.25 million? If you do this calculation, and you can literally do it on a spreadsheet or use a retirement calculator online, you're probably looking at hitting that number around age 50 to 52. Not 65, not 70, around 50. Now here's where most people miss the profound part. That's not just a number on a spreadsheet. That's the age where mathematically you no longer have to worry. Your portfolio is doing the job. You could stop working. You could take a lower-paying job you actually love. You could work part-time. You could take sabbaticals. You could choose. But the psychological shift is even bigger. Because at age 50, if you wanted to keep working, you're not working from fear anymore. You're working from abundance. You're choosing to earn extra money, not desperately trying to catch up. Do you see the difference? One is stressful, the other is empowering. And here's the really interesting part. A lot of people, once they realize they've hit this number, actually keep saving, not from fear, but from habit, and because they might as well. So by the time they're 55 or 60, they've got way more than they need, which means they can retire earlier than they thought, or retire with way more security, or leave money to their kids, or take bigger risks in how they live. Now, I want to be honest about something. This calculation I just gave you is based on your specific situation, and there are a few variables that change everything. First, when did you start? If you're 35 and just starting to save, your retirement age is going to be later than someone who started at 25. Not impossibly later, but notably later. The early years matter more than the later years. This is just compound math being compound math. Second, how much are you actually saving? If you're putting away $5,000 a year, you're going to hit your number later than someone putting away $25,000 a year. But, and this is important, it's not a linear relationship. Doubling your contributions doesn't cut your timeline in half. Time is still doing a lot of the work. Third, what are your actual returns? I used 7%, which is historically accurate for stock market returns, but if you're being ultra-conservative and doing 5%, your timeline extends. If you're getting 8%, it shortens. But we can't control this exactly, so we have to plan around the historical average, not hope for the best or fear the worst. Fourth, what's your expense need? This is huge. Someone who wants to retire on $30,000 a year only needs $750,000. Someone who wants $80,000 needs $2 million. The gap between those two ages is often 5 to 10 years. So the real question is, what do you actually need to be happy? Not what do you want to spend. What do you need? And fifth, this is the one people don't talk about enough. How long is your retirement? The 4% rule assumes 30 years, but if you're retiring at 50 or 55, you might have 40 or 45 years ahead of you, which means you might need a slightly bigger portfolio or a slightly lower withdrawal rate. The math adjusts. But here's what I want you to take away. None of these variables are mysteries. They're not luck. They're not fate. They're decisions you can make or understand right now. And once you understand them, once you plug in your actual numbers, that exact retirement age stops being a mystery and starts being a roadmap.
Here's the thing that nobody prepares you for. The moment you realize you've mathematically hit your retirement number, there's this weird psychological thing that happens. Some people panic. They think, wait, am I really done? Can I really stop now? And they keep saving. Keep grinding, keep worrying, even though the math says they don't have to. Other people feel this enormous sense of relief, like finally the goal became real. It's not theoretical anymore. It's not someday, it's I can actually do this. And some people, and I find this genuinely beautiful, they start thinking about their life differently. Instead of how much more do I need to earn, they start asking, how do I want to actually spend my time? That's a completely different question, and it opens doors that were invisible before. Some people retire immediately. Some people keep working because they love it, but now they're not desperate. Some people shift into a different career entirely. Some people work half the year and travel the other half. Some people reduce their hours. The point is, once you know that the math is handled, you have options. And that's what an exact retirement age gives you. Not just a number, but options. Control, peace of mind, the knowledge that your financial future isn't a question mark anymore, it's a decision. So let's bring this back to where we started. You're sitting at your desk, checking your investment app, wondering if you're on track. And the answer, the real answer, is probably yes. And here's when you can actually relax about it. The exact age you can stop worrying about retirement isn't mysterious. It's not hidden. It's math. It's based on how much you have, how much you're saving, how much you need, and how much time you give your money to grow. Plug in your real numbers, do the calculation, and you've got your answer. For most people doing this right, and I mean people who started saving in their 20s or early 30s and have been consistent, that number is somewhere between 48 and 55. Not 65, not 70. That's only a couple decades away. That's real. That's achievable. That's worth getting excited about. But here's the thing. Knowing the age is one thing. Hitting it is another. And hitting it requires one thing above everything else: consistency. Not perfection, not genius, not luck. Just consistent, boring, regular contributions to your portfolio year after year, while the math does what it's designed to do. The stress you feel right now, a lot of that goes away the moment you truly understand two things. First, what your number is, and second, that you're probably closer to it than you think. So here's what I want you to do. Don't just watch this video and feel temporarily better. Actually sit down this week. Write down your annual retirement need, figure out what you have saved right now, calculate honestly what you can save each year going forward, and then use a simple retirement calculator to find your number, your exact age. Write it down, put it somewhere you'll see it. Because the moment you know it, the anxiety transforms. It stops being, "Am I doing enough?" It becomes, "I've got this handled, and here's when I can prove it." That shift from fear to clarity, that's the real prize, and it's closer than you think. Thank you for watching. If this helped shift how you think about your retirement, please let me know in the comments. And if you've already calculated your retirement age and want to share it, I genuinely love to hear when you think you'll hit your number, because chances are you're probably more on track than you feel. Thanks for watching this video.